Neville Goddard taught something that sounds impossible. He said you can change the past, not metaphorically by reframing your perspective or finding the silver lining. He meant you can revise what happened, rewrite the event in your imagination, and watch your present and future shift to reflect that revision. Most people hear this and dismiss it. They think the past is fixed. What is done is done. Goddard spent decades discovering otherwise. He called it the pruning shears of revision. And he taught that if you use this technique daily, there is no objective beyond your ability to realize. The past you remember is not what happened, but rather the story you tell about what happened. And that story you replay in your mind shapes everything that follows. Change the story, and you change what grows from it. In 1954, Goddard gave a lecture called The Pruning Shears of Revision. He opened with something he'd been told as a 7-year-old boy. A woman had a vision that he would do something so profound, so lasting, that centuries after he was gone, people would still speak of it. He believed this technique could be that thing. He said if he never spoke another word, and you heard only this and applied it, it would plant something tomorrow could not undo. Here's what revision is. At the end of each day, you review the day without judgment. You simply observe what happened, the conversations, the meetings, the small disappointments, the moments that didn't go the way you wanted. Then you rewrite them. You take each event and reshape it in your imagination. You revise the conversation so it ends differently. You revise the disappointment so it never occurred. And then, this is where most people stop too soon. You relive the revised day. You replay the new version over and over in your imagination until it begins to feel real. Until your mind accepts it as something that actually happened. Goddard said these revised days, if truly lived in imagination, will change your tomorrow. When you meet the person tomorrow who disappointed you today, they will not disappoint you tomorrow. Because in you, you have changed the nature of that being. And having changed them within you, they bear witness to the change that took place inside you. This sounds mystical. It sounds like magical thinking. But Goddard was describing mechanics. You think the past recedes behind you as time moves forward. Goddard taught the opposite. Instead, he described the past advances into your future to confront you, either pruned or left to grow wild. Every event you experienced is being projected forward. The argument you had last week will meet you again next week in a different form. Same dynamic, different face, unless you revise it. The humiliation you felt 5 years ago is still active in you. It shapes how you enter rooms, how you speak, what you believe you deserve. It doesn't sit in the past, waiting to be forgotten. It moves with you, shaping what comes next. This is why people repeat patterns. Same relationship, different person. Same job conflict, different boss. Same financial struggle, different circumstances. The pattern lives in the unrevised past, playing forward into every present moment. Goddard said you are placed in the Garden of Eden to dress it and keep it. The garden is your mind. And every person you meet, every circumstance you encounter is rooted in that garden. If you see weeds growing, conflict, lack, disappointment, the solution is not to fight the outer world. The solution is to return to the garden and prune at the root. Revision is the pruning shears. In my early 20s, I worked as a studio assistant for well-known contemporary artists in Chicago and New York. I made their paintings. I learned their techniques, observed their business practices, watched them sell work I had created in their style, work that bore their signature, not mine. For years I carried a quiet resentment. I was underpaid. I wasn't introduced to collectors or curators who could advance my career. I watched opportunities pass to people less skilled simply because they had the right introductions. At the time, I told myself it was just how the system worked. Assistants pay their dues, but underneath, I felt small, kept small. Years later, something shifted. I began to see those experiences differently. Not because the facts changed, the facts remained exactly as they were, but because the meaning I gave them changed. I realized they weren't keeping me back because I lacked talent. They were keeping me back because I had something they feared, something valuable enough that losing me, or worse, being overshadowed by me, felt like a threat. That realization changed everything. The facts stayed the same. My relationship to them transformed. I didn't know Neville Goddard then. I hadn't heard of revision, but I was practicing it without realizing it. I stopped replaying those years as exploitation, and I began seeing them as education. I had been trained by successful artists. I had learned not just technique, but business, relationships, how to navigate galleries and collectors. I had seen what worked and what I never wanted to become. I forgave them, not in the sense of excusing what they did, but in Goddard's sense, I identified them with something beyond their fear. I saw them as teachers who, knowingly or not, gave me exactly what I needed. And then something Goddard predicted began to happen. He taught that your inner state determines your outer world. When I was 23, I inhabited the state of assistant, the one who makes work others sign. That state shaped everything. How I spoke, what I believed I deserved, what opportunities I could see. As I revised those memories, as I began seeing myself differently, not as exploited, but as learning, as valuable, as preparing for my own path, my outer world shifted to match. Within 10 years, my paintings were selling for more than the artists I'd assisted had sold theirs for. Not because I suddenly became more talented. I'd always had the talent. But I finally inhabited a different state, and the world had no choice but to reflect it. This is what revision does. It doesn't erase the past. It rewrites your relationship to the past. And in doing so, it rewrites what the past creates going forward. Goddard's method is simple, deceptively simple. Most people hear it and think they understand immediately. Then they try it once and abandon it because they don't see instant results. The technique requires persistence, but the steps are straightforward. Step 1. Review the day without judgment. At the end of each day, before sleep, sit quietly and review what happened. Don't analyze, don't justify. Simply observe the conversation that went wrong, the opportunity you missed, the moment you felt small or angry or dismissed. See it clearly in your mind. Replay it as it actually occurred. Step 2. Rewrite the event. Now take that same event and revise it. Imagine it ending differently. The conversation that went wrong. Replay it so it goes well. The opportunity you missed. See yourself seizing it. The moment you felt small. Revise it so you felt confident, capable, at ease. Make the revision specific. Don't just think, I wish that had gone better. Actually see and hear the new version. If it was a conversation, hear the words you wish you'd said. See the other person's response. Feel the satisfaction of the exchange going the way you wanted. Step 3. Enter the state akin to sleep. This is the key most people overlook. You can't revise while fully alert and mentally active. You need to be in the drowsy state, the threshold between waking and sleeping where your conscious mind releases control and your subconscious becomes receptive. Lie down. Relax completely. Let yourself drift towards sleep. But don't fully sleep yet. Stay in that hovering state where images feel vivid and real, but you're still slightly aware. Step 4. Relive the revised event. From that drowsy state, replay the revised scene. Not once, over and over. Live it as though it's happening now. Feel it. Let it take on the tones of reality, that strange quality where you're no longer sure if you're imagining it or remembering it. This is the critical moment. You're re-experiencing. The subconscious mind, in this receptive state, begins to accept the revision as fact. Step 5. Fall asleep in the revision, or wake knowing it's done. Either let the scene carry you into sleep, or repeat it until you feel a quiet sense of completion, a knowing that it's done, and then open your eyes. Goddard said if you do this faithfully, these revised days will change your tomorrows. The people you meet will reflect the change. The circumstances you encounter will shift, because you've pruned the root. The mistake most people make is revising once and expecting immediate outer change. Revision works, but it works through repetition. One night of revision plants a seed. Nightly revision for weeks cultivates a garden. If this episode is resonating with you, take a brief moment to subscribe. I would also love to hear from you in the comments. Thank you. Just as well, being aware of common mistakes is crucial. Mistake 1, revising without feeling. You can replay a new version in your mind 100 times. If you're doing it mechanically, without genuine feeling, nothing changes. What impresses the subconscious is feeling. The sense that this revised version is real, true, natural, that it's what actually occurred. If the revision feels forced or fake, it won't take root. You need to sink into it until it feels inevitable, until you almost forget you're revising. Mistake 2. Trying to change too much at once. Revision works best when focused. Take one event, one conversation, one moment that still bothers you. Revise that single thing until you feel the shift. Trying to revise your entire day, every disappointment, every frustration, dilutes the work. The subconscious can't accept 10 different revisions at once. It accepts one deeply lived revision. Mistake 3. Revising from a place of blame. If you revise an argument but you're still mentally blaming the other person, the revision won't work. You're not actually changing the inner state. You're just rearranging the furniture while the foundation stays the same. Goddard taught that revision is forgiveness. You're not pretending the other person was right. You're identifying them with the ideal you want them to embody. You're seeing them as you would want to be seen. This is why revision awakens the spirit of forgiveness in you. You realize that freedom and forgiveness are inseparable. The person you refuse to forgive anchors you through your own judgment of them. Mistake 4. Expecting instant outer change. The subconscious accepts revision quickly. The outer world takes time to reflect it. Patience is required. But the change is inevitable. Goddard explained this through a gardening metaphor. You are placed in the Garden of Eden, the garden of your own mind, to dress it and keep it. Every person you encounter is rooted in you. They grow from assumptions you hold, beliefs you've accepted, patterns you've never questioned. When someone disappoints you, they're not disappointing you from some independent position outside of you. They're reflecting an assumption within you, a belief about how people treat you, what you deserve, how the world works. If you try to change them directly by confronting them, convincing them, forcing them to see your perspective, you're pruning leaves while the root stays intact. Revision goes to the root. You change the assumption within you. And once the root changes, what grows from it must change. This is why Goddard said that when you meet tomorrow the person who disappointed you today, they will not disappoint you tomorrow. You've changed their root in you, and they have no choice but to reflect that change. The outer world is always a projection of inner assumptions. Revision rewrites those assumptions at the source. Goddard believed this technique does more than achieve objectives. He said if you practice revision daily, it awakens the spirit of Jesus within you. And by that, he meant the spirit of continual forgiveness. You begin to see that condemnation serves no purpose. Every person you condemn, you bind to yourself. Every judgment you hold, you carry. Revision forces you to release judgment, because to revise effectively, you must see the other person as you wish they had been. You must identify them with the ideal they failed to embody. This is forgiveness in its truest sense, not the omission of revenge, not pretending they were right, but seeing them beyond their failure as capable of being what you needed them to be. And in that act of revision, you free yourself, because they were never separate from you. They were rooted in you. And by changing how you see them, you change yourself. Goddard said the only art of living in heaven is forgetting and forgiving. You forget the old version by replacing it with the revised version. You forgive by identifying the other with the ideal. Some might call this weakness. Goddard called it mechanics, how consciousness actually works. People who practice revision consistently report something unexpected. They stop seeing themselves as victims. They stop waiting for the world to change so they can be happy. They realize they're the gardener. The world is the garden, and everything in it grows from what they allow to take root. Fast forward to the present. I remember what it felt like to be kept small, and I refused to do that to others. The past didn't change, but I changed the past's hold on me. And in doing so, I changed who I became. This is what revision offers, not the erasure of hardship, not the denial of pain, but the transformation of meaning. You carry your past with you always. Revision determines whether you carry it as weight or as wisdom. Goddard gave this technique to thousands of students over decades. Those who applied it reported profound shifts. Relationships healed. Money appeared. Opportunities materialized. Health improved. Inner states change. Changed states project outward as circumstances. The technique works, but it requires you to do something most people refuse to do. It requires you to take responsibility for everything you see. Every person who wrongs you is rooted in you. Every disappointment reflects an assumption you hold. Every pattern reveals a belief you haven't revised. This sounds harsh, but it's liberating, because if everything is rooted in you, then everything can be changed by you. You are the gardener. Now let's practice this technique together. Find a comfortable position. You can sit or lay down. Close your eyes if that feels natural. Take a slow breath in and release it. Let your body relax. Shoulders drop. Jaw softens. There's nowhere you need to be right now except here. We're going to practice Goddard's revision technique together. I'll guide you through it step by step. Bring to mind one event from your recent past. Something small. A conversation that didn't go the way you wanted. A moment where you felt dismissed or misunderstood. A small disappointment. Don't choose something enormous. Start with something manageable. See that event clearly. Replay it as it actually happened. No judgment, just observation. Where were you? What was said? Notice how it felt in your body. The tightness, the frustration. Now let that version dissolve. We're going to rewrite it. Imagine the same event, but this time it unfolds differently. The conversation goes well. The other person responds the way you wished they had. You say what you meant to say. The moment ends with ease instead of tension. See it clearly. Hear the words. Feel the difference. Make it vivid, specific. What expression is on their face? What tone do they use? How does it feel in your chest when the exchange goes this way? Good. Now replay that revised scene from the beginning. Let yourself experience it as though it's happening now. Feel it becoming real. The strangeness of it starts to fade. It begins to feel natural, almost like a memory. Replay it again. Each time it takes on more reality. Each time the original version loses its grip. Notice the shift in your body. The tightness releases. The frustration dissolves. This revised version feels true. Let the scene loop one more time, slowly. Savor the feeling of it going the way you wanted. Now let the image fade. Rest in the feeling of completion. It's done. The revision has been planted. When you're ready, take a deep breath in and release. Gently open your eyes. If you practice this tonight before sleep, and every night this week, you will notice something. The people involved will shift. The pattern will soften because you revised the root within you. Goddard said there is no objective beyond your ability to realize if you use this technique wisely and daily. The garden of your mind is yours to tend. Prune what doesn't serve. Revise what weighs you down, and watch what grows in its place. If this resonated with you, there is much more. Thank you for listening.